Hello everybody, just started the recording for YouTube. I'm going to be cracking packs while we talk about the latest round of Nerfs. I have a bunch of packs just lying around because I only play Arena. So I figure instead of just packs opening or just talking about the Nerfs, we could do both. So, first up, that's a little loud in my ears actually. Can I spacebar these? Apparently not. Or maybe I can? Huh. I thought you could do that. Spacebar just moves the pack, but you still have to click them to flip them over? That's weird. Link to the Nerfs is right here. Dang. So, first up is Rockbiter Weapon. This is a really efficient removal spell from the core set, and as you'll see as we go through them, this is a running theme for this round of Nerfs. I heard gold for this and legend for this and got real excited. So the efficient removal spells from standard, or core set, because they're always going to be in standard, is, client's a bit loud. Alright. That's why I tried to do this before, but nobody was helping me. They lied to me. There we go. Hopefully that's better. Oops, that's not what I meant. This one. So, core set. A bunch of the really efficient removal spells got axed, and I think that that's pretty expected. I mean, the idea, and I've talked about this before, and so did Kibler, when they made the change from just ranked to standard and wild, that the way that they were doing standard where the core set stays means that the backbone of a lot of the decks are going to stay the same, which is obviously not good when you want your game to last multiple years and, you know, the same 15 plus cards are, you know, the same in each of your warrior or druid decks. I think that it's pretty... I thought that it was pretty bad that they decided to keep the core set in the standard format. I think that they did it out of sort of laziness, I guess would be the word, because keeping a somewhat balanced metagame through sets rotating is really, really hard. But if you have that backbone of the core set, then you can get away with a lot more because you already have your sort of baseline. And then the format rotating means you don't have to worry about power creep. But the problem with that was that so many of the core set cards were just way too good and overly efficient. And we saw in that first wave of nerfs, a bunch of the like druid staples got axed because of this exact problem. If you have a standard format that's based around the core set, or that, you know, always has the core set, then a lot of your decks are going to be based around those core set cards that are pushed a little too much. So that we saw that consequence in the first wave of nerfs when they went to standard, and this is just the continuation of that. At first it was like sort of the combos and stuff that were somewhat problematic, and now it's just like, okay, every deck starts with the same removal. That's not good. That makes, when the standard or when the core set removal is so efficient, it makes developing and designing really, really difficult for standard, because you have to make a new removal spell that's, you know, fun and interesting, but also good enough to be played, but your baseline for being good enough to play is so high because of the power level of the core set removal spells. So by dialing back heavily on the power of the core set removal spells, design and development going forward can get a lot more creative and have a lot more room for powerful removal in the design space that things like Rockbiter were just completely dominating. Rockbiter, some words on Rockbiter specifically, since everything that I've said so far is kind of a general theme. Rockbiter itself was not only a super efficient removal spell, but it was a lot of like OTK type stuff came out of Rockbiter's existence due to Wind Fury as being a shaman theme. Obviously, that was intended that you know, your class legendary works with one of your class removal spells and so on. But when the rest of the shaman cards get pushed power-wise to the point where that extra damage, that extra reach is a little too good, then you start having to look at things like Rockbiter, where it was fine when Doomhammer Rockbiter, you know, only dealt 10, but now with the Trog and the 3/4 for 2, etc., all the really aggressive cards have just gotten so power creep, so power crept. So power crept that now that sort of combination is a little easier to capitalize on, and thus probably a little too good. So that is a totally normal thing for this. I actually see Tunnel Trog and Totem Golem being mentioned here as reasons that Rockbiter, or not reasons that Rockbiter, what does this say? They consider nerfing those. Yeah, so like, Rockbiter itself isn't a problem, but when you put it with a bunch of these other really busted, aggressively stanced cards, it becomes problematic. Yeah, power creepified is, I'm pretty sure, the correct way to say that. Whoop. Godzilla! So moving on. More Shaman nerfs. This is out of the, my brother. More Shaman nerfs because that Shaman burn deck was getting a little too aggressive, and a little too strong, a little too hard to interact with, and so, you know, you need another nerf. And I like this nerf specifically because this is another thing that I talked about. Things like this and things like Murloc Knight cap your design space. When Tuskar Totemic existed in its original form, you can't make busted totems. You just can't. You can't make, you know, your, like, 6/6 for 6 with an ability totem because of the consequences of this. And Murloc Knight is the same. So you can print good totems as long as you print some bad totems to sort of counteract it, kind of like they did with Murloc Knight and the Tiny Fin, right? Tiny Fin being printed is a sliver of a nerf to Murloc Knight. So you can balance it that way, but that only works if you're going just above the level for power. If you're only pushing the power line a little bit. If you want to go upstairs with it, you know, you want to make a giant finisher that's also a totem for whatever flavor reason or gameplay reason, you just can't do it while this card exists, no matter how many small totems you print, because that RNG differential becomes too extreme, which we'll actually get to at the very end with Yogg-Saron. Spoilers, but that's not a healthy thing for the game when a card is either do nothing or do something amazing, right? It's good when it's do something kind of good and do something pretty good, or do something bad or do something okay, you know, like when the difference between the RNGs, potential RNG outcomes, are closer together, then the better the gameplay experiences are and the more healthy the gameplay patterns are. So this is a pretty standard nerf to be making anyway. If not for power level reasons, because the Shaman deck is so good, but also because this just opens up a lot of design space, and I guess not opens up, but reopens up, since that was design space they cut themselves off of by printing this card in the first place. Done with GVG. Let's do this one next, I guess. So, this reminds me of the Master of Disguise nerf when they went from standard to wild, or when they went from ranked to standard and wild, because Master of Disguise was not nerfed because it was too good. Rather, it was nerfed because it just cut off a bunch of design space. You can't make like a mini Ysera or something like that, while Master of Disguise can just cloak it and put your opponent in a spot where like they're going to lose this card that now they can't interact with. That was a nerf that a lot of people were really confused by, and I got a bunch of tweets about it when I was saying I agreed with the nerf. People were saying, you know, why? It's not like that card was overpowered. That's not the point of the nerf. The point of the nerf is to open up potential design space going forward, and I think that this is the same principle with a touch of, yeah, Shaman also needed to be a little more nerfed than just Rockbiter, so it all totally adds up and makes sense. Next, Call of the Wild, going from 8 to 9 mana. This is one that is fine. I think that this is... How do I put this? This is a nerf that is somewhat necessary, but only because of the way that Hunter is being designed. From the early days, Hunter was really, really overpowered, and then became really, really overpowered again, and they've had to nerf it multiple times throughout Hearthstone's history. And they've been, ever since those, they've been very, very gun-shy about making Hunter too good. And the problem with Hunter was almost always the face aspect of it, right? You could go up to 6 on your curve, but what was damning was how fast it was and how demanding it was on other deck building, or for deck building for other decks, in a Hunter-based metagame, became very, very restricted. And that's not good. So they dialed way back on the aggression for Hunter, and in doing so, made it so that Hunter had a very, very different face. The problem with that is that if you are going to have Hunter like slow down a lot, you can't then have the top-end card be this busted. I think that if Call of the Wild existed during Death Rattle Hunter, it wouldn't have seen play. The reason that it saw play, and was thus too good, is because Hunter sort of lost its identity. I think that they dialed the aggression back a little too much so that a card like this became the dominant Hunter strategy. And a one-card strategy that is like this strong, but also against the nature of the deck, it just really doesn't make any sense. So rather than nerf this, I prefer them to have designed and developed in a place where the Call of the Wild didn't... Ooh, bits. Ooh, bits! Gotta get those badges. Very nice. I wonder if the badges will show up on my little CLR capture. I guess we'll see. But thank you, Nougat Knight, and welcome. So, Call of the Wild. In the world that we live in, it probably needed a nerf, and this makes sense. But I wish that we didn't live in that world. I wish that there was more forethought going into it, rather than sort of a retroactive sort of approach to it. HR, we are just opening packs and talking about the nerfs, then we're going to switch over to Legacy Cube. The only other thing I'm going to say about the Call of the Wild change is the fact that the 8 versus 9 difference is one of the most impactful in the game because of you know, 2 mana is a huge crux point between your hero being able to hero power and do your thing, or just like impactful cards usually cost 2 mana or more. And especially with a lot of these cards changing, you know, you'll see a lot more of that. But being able to play Call the Wild that full turn earlier, and a full turn earlier before the other 9 and the other 10s to outpace them, ooh, rare, is a huge deal. And late game, the fact that you can play it and activate your hero power, or play it and another 2-drop, is a pretty significant nerf, you know. Nerfing a 7 to an 8 is usually not as big of a deal as nerfing something from 8 to 9, for example. Whereas nerfing something from 5 to 6 is also huge. So those types of... there's certain, like, inflection points, and I think that 8 to 9 is one of those that's like a significant downgrade. Execute. So this is another in the line of just the hyper-efficient removal was getting too good, or was always too good, and this is another thing where it's just like, well, you did this to yourselves, Blizzard, by by putting the standard in the standardness, by putting the core set in the standard, you kind of backed yourself into this corner of, like, oh right, that core set was, they came out of the gate strong. The fact that you can power creep up to the point where you have to create standard, but then also these cards are seeing play, means the original set was probably designed a little too strong, you know? And by making standard always include it, you have to suffer for your sins. Whereas if you just made standard a rotating format like it is in Magic, then you wouldn't have to deal with it. Returning to Hearthstone. I mean, I've been playing it since, I just haven't been streaming it. Hearthstone is terrible is not a sentiment that I agree with or will accept, so please mature or feel free to step out. But Execute it specifically, since I've already talked about the Rockbiter stuff, so I shouldn't rehash it for the 15th time in 20 minutes. But Execute is also one that scaled a lot better. So Rockbiter scaled because the damage of the combos of the Wind Fury and just the efficiency of it became better, or became more impactful as the power creep of the aggression of Shaman increased. Execute is one that's sort of the inverse, where it directly worked with new ones. Execute didn't get... how do I say this? Execute didn't work with things already, like Whirlwind, right? Whirlwind and Execute is fine. And doesn't really improve as the warrior cards increase in playability. The problem is that things that are better than Whirlwind, things like the Ghoul, that is where you get into a position of being problematic, because Whirlwind Execute was your down a full card for the efficiency of the 2-for-1, the 1-for-2, you know, 2-for-1ing yourself, and that being able to forego that price by getting your Whirlwind attached to a playable card, a 3-3-for-3, means that your Execute now scales a lot more steeply, because the difference between being able to Whirlwind Execute on 4, you know, kill their Yeti stand-in, versus not being able to is huge. Or being able to Whirlwind Execute and do something else. Like the mana efficiency now is compounded, because instead of 2 1-mana things, you're looking at a 3-mana and a 1-mana thing. as well as just execute having its power level pushed more and more as the ping effects become better and better. So this is another one that's just like, you know, totally obvious and foreseeable ahead of time, but also now that it's here, it's like, yeah, we know, and we have to be okay with it because we don't want standard to be core set dot format for the rest of time. So yeah, that explains execute. Charge. This one is bizarre. This is based on the Raging Worgen combo. I don't see any other reason that charge would be changed. And it baffles me because the Worgen combo, in my experience, has not been overly dominant, right? It hasn't really boxed out other strategies. It's just been always like a solid fringe player. I think that the change is solely to backpedal further because they already did the commander change. But of just, this will always exist in standard because of this, again, in my opinion, terrible decision to make it the core set always legal in standard means that you're just going to have to face this for the rest of time. And people are sick of it. They're just, it's not that it's too good, they're just bored of being comboed out with Raging Worgen, so they had to change one of their cards, and this one goes in the line of the Warsong Commander, where we will just completely alter the card so that it doesn't work in the context that people remember it. I mean, this isn't a nerfing, this is a banning, right? This is straight up, they are not nerfing charge, they are banning charge and printing another card. It's the same thing with the Warsong Commander. And this is just based on people being sick of losing to the same shit, which I totally get, right? That's a totally logical thing. But this type of nerf is something that I don't think is healthy, because if you're just changing cards, you're changing people's collections. You're changing, like, my executes cost one more, but they're still executes. This is just, what if I liked charge as a card? What if I liked building around charge even if it wasn't with Raging Worgen? I just can't now? That's kind of bullshit, right? So this is the type of nerf that I don't really get behind, even though this one specifically I totally get, because again, losing to Worgen for the rest of time is not an appealing proposition, but that would be a problem best solved by not having standard have core set, but also by doing it this way, it's just, I don't know, not a fan. Not a fan. I'm going to pause to answer some questions. The ability for the devs to nerf cards like this is a net positive, right? Yes. Hearthstone being able to be nerfed through digital realm, you can't do this. You can't just errata a card and have it be widely accepted in Magic. And that's one of the huge advantages of having a game exclusively digital, because you can do shit like that. And that is really, really good, and something that I thought that they were not taking nearly enough advantage of until recently. They started really taking more advantage of it, which is, in my opinion, a really, really good thing to be doing. But I think that this execute nerf is a good thing to be doing. I don't think this charge nerf is a good thing to be doing. To change the identity of the card is not healthy. To tweak numbers very slightly to make to make a healthy metagame, and to make a changing metagame, because you have to change your metagame if you're going to have the backbone be the same. So those types of changes I love and agree with, and I think is a huge boon to doing a digital game. It's why I'm looking forward to Eternal as much as I am, because I think that is the future. You know, I think that that's just amazing. But I think that you have to do it in a conscientious, and respectful way. And I don't think that changes like this are necessarily conscientious and respectful. What was the other question I missed? Hearthstone is designed to be approachable. That's not a question. Is there any kind of big official limited tournament for Hearthstone, or is it all constructed? It's pretty much all constructed, which is a shame because I pretty much only play Arena. But we've been asking for something for relevance of Arena for a long time. And I think that it's just going to be a matter of time, especially as they are making changes to Arena. Like, they took out Sacrificial Pact and stuff like that. Like, those changes, the fact that they are removing cards from the limited pool means that they are aware that people love limited and want it to be relevant and fair and balanced and important and matter. So I think that that change from Blizzard is sort of the step one, the sort of olive branch of, yes, we are willing to listen to the people that like Arena. We recognize Arena as a legitimate way to play our game. And I think then, you know, ooh, this one's good. And I think that the logical conclusion to that is to have limited tournaments. Another part of the problem is that a lot of the Hearthstone tournaments are third-party rather than through Blizzard. But that's another issue entirely. I think that we will see Arena become better and more carefully manicured and become tournament relevant within the next year. I think one of the main issues with OTK and counter style decks and Hearthstone is no disruption effects when interacting with the opponent's turn. Yeah, but that's inherently true for, you know, both sides, and for, like, you have access to that as well. Like Miracle Rogue, right? Miracle Rogue was probably a little too good, but they just could make Auctioneer cost one more, and it's not way too good anymore. You know, it's you can make those tweaks to push things back and forth and create new forms of interaction, like the really sticky taunts and stuff like that, and Lothab, like you mentioned. You know, that's design space that you can play with. Saying that it's not good because you can't play things on their turn, well, I mean, you know, then don't play Hearthstone. That's the game engine. That would be like saying Magic's great except for you have to draw lands to play your spells. It's like, well, if that is like a hang-up for you, then you just won't be able to play Magic. That's just it's sort of a necessary conceit to the game engine. Moving on, Abusive Sergeant. This change was so obvious and inevitable that I'm blown away it took this long. This is when they changed over and did all the core set nerfs the first time. The fact that Leper Gnome was the one that got a power removed instead of Abusive Sergeant is egregious. Abusive Sergeant is far better, far more useful, and far more impactfully relevant than Leper Gnome. And the fact that that was either that it was an oversight by the development team, or that they thought that Leper Gnome was less fun to lose to than Abusive Sergeant, which I also disagree with. That nerf made very little sense to me. You know, I can come up with justifications for it. Like Abusive Sergeant is more interesting than Leper Gnome, which I agree with. But those reasons that I can come up with, those justifications that I can create to argue with myself in terms of devil's advocate for the developers in favor of Leper Gnome over Abusive Sergeant is just baffling. Like, it's just, they don't make nearly as much sense as the alternative. So, yay, It's about time Sergeant got axed, or nerfed. Again, Charge got axed. Sergeant got nerfed, right? This card is still going to see play. In the sort of, like, Faceless Manipulator, OTK kills for the Warlock decks and stuff like that, and the Zoo board control aggressive decks, this card is still going to see play. Leper Gnome is one that went from seeing fringe play to seeing no play. This is going to go from seeing a ton of play to seeing a little play. Like, more than fringe, but less than a lot. And I think that that's a better place to be for a card like this. And a better place for a card to be moved from one to another. So this makes total sense, and I'm shocked it took this long. But I'm glad it's here now, even if it's after the Leper Gnome thing. Lastly, Yogg Saron. Where's my water? My throat's kind of dead. I did a lot of screaming this weekend. Games involving combo or one-turn kills kind of binary. But that's not inherently true, right? Go back to the Miracle Rogue example. Ooh, I already have that. The reason that the Miracle Rogue was okay, you know, it was too good and they had to make it cost one more, which is whatever. But the reason that that isn't broken or whatever is because a lot of the combo, first of all, you're relying on drawing one of your thingies, auctioneers, and then also the combo is like based off the top of your deck. You know, there's some non-0% of the time that you just fizzle out or have to pass the turn and then they can kill your thing. Or you have to play your auctioneer and hope that it doesn't die, or even cloak it and hope that it doesn't die. And there are still ways to interact with that, even though the point of the cloak or conceal is to try and get around the most common forms of interaction. They then print more forms of interaction through the cloak, or just make the clock faster and make it cost one more. You know, like the best way to play around combo, and similarly the best way to play around Yogg Saron, is kill your opponent before it happens. This thing is 10 mana and you often can't even play it on turn 10, right? Just kill your opponent. If you're building a deck that is like slow and dirtily but then still gets blown out by like Wrath draw 3 cards or whatever, like a weak Yogg Saron, then that's your fault. That's not Yogg Saron's fault, just like it wasn't Auctioneer Conceal's fault. That's you making deck building choices and then being punished for those choices. That's fine. That's healthy. That's part of a normal metagame, or a normal healthy metagame within a format, right? That's a healthy format. So this is sort of the same principle as that Auctioneer rule. As for the OTK kills, again, like those Warlock kills, I mean, they already took out Arcane Golem. Yeah, Foil Wisp. They already took out Arcane Golem. So a lot of those kills were a lot worse. But, like, those combos cost 3 or 4 separate cards and all 10 mana. If your opponent has that, the fact that they have an OTK is almost irrelevant, right? It means that they win 99% of those positions instead of 90% of those positions. It's not even worth considering. The fact that you got yourself into that position is what's bad. That's what got you into that position where you can even see the OTK, right? You don't even get to see that they had cards rotting in their hand the whole game. The opportunity cost of those slots and the amount of like bricks in their deck, as well as non-interactive cards, and the inability to get all the way up to 10 mana, and 10 mana on like if without taunts, right? Or just a bunch of armor. If they just have 30 armor, or like 2 taunts, then your 10 mana kill doesn't even kill them. Like, once you get to that position, you need to have either not gotten into that position or have the forms of interaction that you need. And if you don't, then the OTK is the least of your worries. Like, you were dead anyway. And that was true for the like giant OTKs and the Auctioneer and the Warlock Arcane Golem. A lot of these are also charged by Empire Thorison, which A, will rotate, and B, is like yet another piece. I think I already have a Baron again. I feel like these thoughts don't really fall in line with... Saying every deck should be able to kill their opponent by turn 10 is kind of silly. Not really! Like... You... Ooh la la! I already have a Tyrion, but not a shiny one. Yeah, exactly. What Sophie said. Not every deck should be able to beat every deck, right? Sometimes you're just gonna have a bad matchup. And crying about the win condition of your bad matchup is nonsense. Like, it's... That's your fault, not development's, you know? If you can't beat a deck that is extremely slow and has high deck building costs and multiple dead cards, then something's wrong with your deck / metagame decision. Not the format, right? I think that's my second foil harvest, which is sweet. So yeah, so the OTKs are not really a problem. So Yogg-Saron is kind of an extension of that. I started by answering a question. We kind of segued into talking about Yogg-Saron. I don't think Yogg-Saron was too good. I think that people are lazy and bad, right? If you lose to Yogg-Saron, then it feels bad, right? You feel like you did lose to Yogg-Saron, but you didn't. You lost to, I mean, maybe you did, but an overwhelming percentage of the time, I shouldn't say overwhelming, but an underrated amount of the time, you lost because you played a deck that let your opponent cast 10 spells and then a 10 drop. You were not applying enough pressure or doing enough of your own super valuable things. Like, if you are complaining that you're going to lose to Yogg-Saron, then why aren't you just playing it, right? It just doesn't make sense to get to that point with that amount of, like, disconnect in your understanding of the way the games are playing out. It's not the last thing that killed you, it's the you lost the entire game, not to one card. Now, Yogg-Saron is powerful enough that maybe you did lose to Yogg-Saron. Like, maybe you did put yourself in a position where you had, like, 6 cards in hand and 3 minions in play, and your opponent on low life, and your opponent, like, played terrible and had no value yet, and got Yogg-Saron and got, like, 4 perfects off of their spells, right? Maybe that does happen. And that does feel bad. Queue up again. Like, that doesn't give you the right to cry about it on the internet and make them change it. That's just part of playing card games. If you can't handle that sort of swing, then, like, go... Or not, I shouldn't say swing. If you can't handle that type of variance, then go play chess. Like, with card games, you know, sometimes you mulligan 3 high drops and draw 3 high drops and lose that way. Do you get to complain about that? No, that's part of the game. The rules are never broken from a player's perspective. You are given confines to play within. That being said, Yogg-Saron should probably not exist. I think that it's probably a dumb design. And I also think that it is bad for the game as a whole in terms of competitive nature. And I think that this nerf is totally legit, and I am 100% behind it, and Urzi, what's your point? Some pros complained about it, so they should nerf it? Then why aren't the pros all working at Blizzard? It's not the pros design. It's not the pros' job to design, and it's not the development's job to be pros. But anyway, back to my point. I interrupted myself. Yogg-Saron, I agree with the nerf, but not because of power levels. It has nothing to do with power levels. I don't think this card is too good. In fact, it is not too good. It is mathematically not too good. That is just, like, proven. The math exists. Go to Reddit. You'll find it. It's just not overpowered. It just isn't. It's an inarguable point. But it is too good not to play. Right? It's pushed enough. It is high enough value that you should play it. But normally that's not a problem, right? If a card is too good not to play, but not too good to be dominant, that's fine, right? Dr. Boom pushed that barrier a lot. If you think about like Karen Bloodhoof or Sylvanas Windrunner, those are cards that are just often in many metagames throughout Hearthstone's history too good not to play, but totally fine to exist. Just because a card is in a ton of decks, or that there are decks built around the card, does not mean that that card should be banned. Because that sort of attitude means that you think that the logical extension of that attitude is that you think that all cards should be unplayable, or like just baseline playability at most. That's not a fun game. Imagine playing poker where the entire deck is tens. Right? You need aces and deuces. Otherwise, it's not a game. So, but you can have aces and deuces without having jokers, right? You can have, like, jokers are a thing, right? Pyroblast at 8, or what was it? Pyroblast or Mind Control at 8, Sylvanas at 5, Unleash the Hounds at 2. Like, you know, there are jokers that you need to turn back into aces or get rid of somehow. I already have a Harrison. I guess I have most of the classic legendaries, at least the playable ones. So you need variability in your playability and power levels to make things interesting. So having a card that is like well above baseline power level is legit. You need that for a game. But the difference is that the variability between the endpoints of the RNG spectrum, like what I talked about at the very beginning. What were we talking about? We were talking about the Tuskar totem. When we were talking about the Tuskar totem, we talked about the variability between RNG, differentials of the spectrum. That is an argument against Yogg-Saron, right? The swinginess and randomness is not good for a competitive game. Now, if this card was worse, somehow, you know, maybe the spells in the game were worse, or it was a 1-1 instead of a 7-5, I guess that probably wouldn't make too big of a difference. But if this was somehow a worse card, like it battlecried the same but for half or a third of the spells, right? Then it wouldn't be played except on the very fringe and would have much lower impact on each game it's played in, and would have that diminished impact on way fewer games. That would be fine. But it's the combination of the two. It's the combination of the giant, swingy, random nature and the fact that it's pushed to the point that it's played in all of these decks and built around so much. The combination of the two, then you start to paint a picture of a card that's not healthy. And that's painting the picture of Yogg-Saron. It is far too easy for somebody to simplify, I lost to Yogg-Saron, and thus Yogg-Saron is busted. There are two seemingly logical steps that are both greatly and deeply flawed, which lead to the conclusion that is similar to the conclusion of the correct path around to, yeah, this card should probably be nerfed. So you make these logical fallacies and these mistakes in your reasoning to get to the same conclusion. That conclusion is reached by the developers, and you're reassured, you're self-assured, and reconfirmed in your thought process and ideology and approach to the decision making that led you to that conclusion, even though it is faulty. And I guarantee you it is faulty. This card is not too good. It isn't. It's not too good to be allowed. It's too good not to be played. And the swingy nature of it is bad for competitive play. And that's why Yogg-Saron is being nerfed. Whew! Rant over. We have 164 more packs to open, so I'll answer some questions if anybody has any. Hey Arcanoi, only 163 more packs and then we'll be drafting the cube. This card is stupid. They got rid of nerfed BGH and then made a 4-mana 7/7. Yeah! Yeah, the wet mouth noise, or the squishiness. I don't mind the, like, tentacle explosion. I just don't like the, like... Let me see if I can get close to the mic and do this. The sort of, like, suggestive, like, squishy noise. That's the one I don't like. Favorite Humphreys song? I was actually thinking about this the other day. Because I had a dream that was remembering a time that I ran into Humphreys at a Cubs game. But, like, I didn't want to, like, you know... You don't want to, like, bother celebrities, so I didn't say anything. But then, afterwards, I regretted not just being like, hey, you're Humphreys McGee, I'm a huge fan, keep doing what you're doing, and then walk away, right? Because I think they would have appreciated that. But I didn't want to be like, oh my god, it's Humphreys, will you sign my chest? You know, because that's really uncomfortable. And they're humans, they're bros, like, at a baseball game. You don't want to ruin their good time. But anyway... So I had a dream about that experience recently, which made me think, if I met them now, what would I say? Which then led me to, like, you know, what if they engaged me? Would I have things to talk about the band? I mean, obviously I do, but, like, what would the, you know, my favorite song or album or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So my thing about Humphreys is that I basically have grown with them as a band. So when I first started listening to them in high school, I was 15, 16. Jake and Bayless are like best friends. Jake is Bayless's kid's godfather. That's why No Diablo was written for Jake's Son by Bayless. Anyway, go listen to that song. It's really, really good, and the lyrics are, a letter from one of them to the other's son. Harvest Time, I like that question. I'll get to it in a second. Sophie, yours as well. But, so when I first started listening to Humphreys in high school, my favorite songs were Slacker and Front Porch. And then I really liked Wife Soup and pretty much all of Mantis. you know, in sort of when I was like 22, and now I like things like No Diablo, and I have a much bigger appreciation for anchor drops, things like Memories of Home, as well as what are some other examples? Wallet's Worth, stuff like that. But right now, I would say my favorite song, since it does change, but right this exact instant, I would say my favorite song by them is No Diablo. Or their cover of I Want You, She's So Heavy, which is insane. Sophie's question. Do you think Blizzard decided to have a non-rotating set as a base instead of Magic system because they were afraid of backlash on reprints and didn't want to run out of clean design space of role fillers too quickly? Yes. I think that is a huge part of it. I think that in Magic, you can print Lightning Bolt and then later Shock and then later, you know, Sorcery Speed Shock, and then Lightning Bolt again, and then Lightning Strike, and then Sorcery Lightning Strike, and Incinerate. You know, you can do that where you tweak the numbers. But Hearthstone, if you printed Arcane Shot and then print another Arcane Shot that does 3 damage, people would lose their goddamn minds. They would lose their or there would be hype and whatever. But going the other way, going back the other way, they would lose their minds, right? If you made if an Arcane Shot did 3 damage and then you made it do 2, they would lose their minds for sure. So I think that is definitely true, and definitely part of the reason. But I also think that just balancing a constantly rotating format is very hard, especially when you're looking at full expansions and the, what do they call them, quests, right? Where it's like, we're releasing 200 cards and then we're releasing 16. You know, that type of format is hard to keep everything, to make the 16 like relevant but not overpowered. You know, you put yourself in a lot of really hard developmental positions, and I think that by keeping the core set, you keep the power level baseline to then work off of, as well as not having to worry about a lot of the reprints for the backbone types of cards. Adventures, thank you. Quests, adventures, I was pretty close. The quests are the gold giving things. Harvest Time's question. Do you think Yogg was nerfed because Blizzard uses high-level tournaments as a marketing tool, and the faulty perception of those being decided by a random card is off-putting to the masses of incorrect goons? Yes. Yes. But I don't think that their perception is wrong, right? The faulty perception is from the players, but Blizzard's decision is correct. If something is perceived as bad like that, and if it's persistent, right? If Yogg Saron was legal for 2 to 4 months, it'd be fine. But like, if you have to put up with this thing for 2 years, then eventually they're going to get sick of spinning the wheel or seeing the wheel spun for games for tens of thousands of dollars. So I think that it's kind of a combination of the two. But I agree with the decision, whether or not the reason behind it from the developmental or from Blizzard is the same as the people who wanted to change and are now celebrating it. Whether or not they agree, which I strongly believe that they don't, I think the conclusion is the same, so it's kind of all good. I only am ranting about this because I think that it is really damning. It's damaging for players. I'm trying to do y'all a favor and help players realize that blaming a card like this and then getting it nerfed and being like, see, I was right, that's not healthy. That doesn't help you improve. That's not good for your development as a player. Be a student of the game, be humbled, and learn, rather than complain about Yogg Saron. Try and figure out how to beat it or utilize it better than them, or both. That's what champions do. The band is Humphreys McGee. Haven't been super involved in the community, but what causes AJ and others to believe the reasoning of most people who wanted to see the card nerfed was that it was too strong? Just look at forums, look at Reddit, and the Blizzard. Ooh, that's a playable one. I have this in my arena deck right now too. It's just everywhere. I mean, it's not like you really have to go digging to see massive amounts of the community complain about exactly that. View every decision through the lens of keeping your customers happy enough to keep your business. The basic. Yeah, identity for the core sets, or identity for the classes is another good reason to keep the core sets, because it lets you push the identity in the expansions without losing the identity, because you still have that backbone. That's another good reason I hadn't considered. Why are you opening so many packs? Because they're sitting on my account and I wanted to talk about Hearthstone, and why not? People like watching people open packs, so I figured why not do it on stream rather than off stream. I mean, Lightning Bolt was in Standard like a few years ago, you know? It's not unheard of. But Magic is so much bigger, and the constant rotation and blah 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 makes it a lot easier to do stuff like that. Like, 3 damage for 1 mana at instant speed, and then 4 years later, it's 2 mana at sorcery speed. And we're happy to play both because of the way that the metagames shift and the way that they structure them, you know? That's the beauty of the I mean, Magic development is a beautiful thing, and they're unbelievably good at what they do for exactly that reason. Because imagine, you know, starting at Lightning Bolt and then having to use power creep to sell sets. We don't want to play that game. I mean, we kind of are, but but it's a lot less. It's a lot less understated in Magic. They're a lot better about it than the Hearthstone people were at the beginning. They're getting better at it as well. Al Caponage, what's the question? I didn't see it if you asked it before. Yeah, Bolt was in M12. That was 4 years ago. I mean, like, I still have my Lightning Bolts that I played in Standard in a box. And now I'm, like, next time I go to a Standard tournament, I'm gonna need to find the fucking Incendiary flows for my new deck, you know? And I'm happy to do it. And I'll be happy when they reprint Lightning Bolt again in 6 years. You have 2 Healy Rai Planeswalkers in your grave and play Sun Titan. Does that make infinite Sun Titans with haste? So Saheeli Rai is... You put the token into play, right? Create a token that's a copy of... Oh yeah, create is being used. I assume create is put it into play, or onto the battlefield under your control. Excuse me for the outdated lexicon there. But, yeah, it should. I don't see why it wouldn't. Comes into play. Trigger brings back the other Saheeli Rai. You sacrifice... You choose to keep that one and sacrifice this one. Copy it again. Yeah. I don't see why it wouldn't. Oh, is that how spacebar works? I thought you could just, like, flip over the cards with spacebar, but apparently you can't. Rare. The problem with... Ooh! The problem with Sun Titan Twin is that you have to get 2 copies of Saheeli Rai. Any more questions? We still got like 100 packs left. 125. How come you're opening so many packs? Why not? I can't sell them. They're not Magic packs. Intuition, your Sahili? I didn't think we were talking about Legacy. I think you could probably do a little better than that in Legacy. Do I like IRM jobs? Sounds like a corporation that I can't... You know, I don't have the education background to apply for. Isn't the copy Sahili an artifact? Snow Sound stops activatability of artifacts. There's no artifacts being activated. The only thing being activated is the Planeswalker, which is not an artifact. Planning on playing the new standard? In Magic, you mean? Yes, absolutely. I will be hopefully going to... what is it? Denver, December 2nd? I'd love to go to something in the meantime, but it's not clear that I'm going to be able to, but Denver's the next one that I'm like 90% to go to. And I'll be playing Standard on stream at some point as well, I'm sure, even though I mostly draft. Hearthstone decks, do you enjoy playing Constructed? Favorite class for Arena? I pretty much only play Arena. It's been a couple years since I really did the grind, the ranked grind. So it's hard to answer that first question. But when I did play Standard, it was Death Rattle Hunter. I played a lot of like Paladin Control, Control Warrior, a lot of Miracle Rogue, and a good amount of like Suicide Rogue and, you know, Blitz Rogue and Blitz Hunter. A lot of like really, really aggressive decks and a lot of really, really controlled decks and not a lot of mid-range. That's kind of my style. But yeah, I just play Arena now. My favorite class is probably still Mage. But I enjoy pretty much all the classes. My favorite besides Mage is actually probably Warrior, not because it's the next best, but because it's super fun. And because playing without a hero power is a little hard. And the extra challenge is nice. Ooh. Yeah, I played ranked like 4 or 5 months in a row and got legend each time. And then I think like only one of the months was the first month that I went for legend. I started like too late. I started like halfway through the season, and that was the last month that you could do BlizzCon. So I played qualify for BlizzCon. So I played a shit ton to try and get top 16, and ended up getting like I got to like 27th or 26th, and then lost a couple more before the time ran out. But I just ran out of time and ended up in like 33rd or something like that, which was disappointing. But I did it to myself. I just didn't give myself enough time because I thought like, oh, it's fine. I'll start next month and qualify, and then found out that that was the last month you could qualify, so that was disappointing. But yeah, there's no real point in grinding ranked unless you're going for the tippy top. Ooh, big monkey. Hearthstone Legacy? You mean like the wild format? Also no. If I was going to play something besides Arena, it would be Standard. Do you ever play Pauper? Not really. I used to grind it a lot in like 2009 maybe, when the prize structure was really good and the Teachings deck was just busted and everybody was terrible at it, but I haven't played it for years. Hey Carlos, how's it going? Long time no see. I'm gonna purge you. No Harambe memes, please. That is That is a meme we are not allowing in this chat. Pretty much all of the other memes, A-okay. Oh my god, Jay Carver hype. It's been so long since I've been able to watch Twitch streams, and then I watched Dutch play. I got to watch Dutch for the first time in forever, and he was playing Raz. And I'm like, yes, because I love games that aren't No Limit Hold'em. I mean, I love No Limit Hold'em also, but streams of other games are rare, so they're sweet. Because we never get to play them in the U.S. Since our sites are all just Hold'em and a little bit of Omaha. But, so I watched Dutch, and he was playing Raz, and I was pumping the fist. And the next day I watched Jay Carver, and he played Raz, and then Horse, and then 8 game? I think it was Horse, and then 8 game the next day. So, like, 2 full days of nonsense, boo, of being able to watch those guys play non-limit Hold'em, or non-no limit Hold'em. Yeah, I fucking love Raz. I mean, Raz was like my best game when I played online before Black Friday, but I mean, when my dad played online. Another? Tilt. But the like full tilt stuff, like there were no Raz tournaments, or good Raz tournaments, and I'm a tournament player, not a cash game player, or at least I was at the time. So I would play some sub hype. It's fun, hater. 22 months. Thank you, my friend. Welcome. How are you this fine evening? It's going all right. We got 60 more packs. Ooh, 80 more packs, and then we get to draft some cube. Oh man, I'm Dark Fisher flooded. But anyway, the 4 rare pack. The Raz games, like, you couldn't really play them. So I would play Horse, which my stud games are fine. Oh, I was like, why is it not going? I think it's 400 dust. Well, I mean, I guess I could do them both since they're unplayable. But I'll probably just keep the other one in case I want to do, like, Mill Rogue or something. Nah, dude, banana games are the nuts. Shit, what was I gonna say? Oh, so you never really got to play Raz straight up. So to play Raz, I had to play Horse, which my stud games were okay. My Limit Hold'em game is good, and my Limit Omaha game is non-existent. So I would just, like, knit it up hardcore. Literally only play, like double suited aces with a low, like just the stone nuts, you know, in the Omaha rounds, because I could make enough chips in Limit Hold'em and Raz and then hold my own in the stud games that I was a good, like, well profitable Horse player despite just being terrible at one of the games. But most of the money was still No Limit Hold'em at the time, so it was mostly that, but there were some good Horse tournaments. I just wish there were more. So it's cool to see those guys. Now that Horse is like, and other games like Raz and stud variations, and even like crazy games like Portugal and whatnot. Ooh! Shogal. Battlecry. Oh, I know that guy. I don't know if he's great or terrible, but he's one of the contextual ones that it like just depends on what you're casting. Mill and Reno. 2 great tastes that taste great together, I think is what you meant. But yeah, being able to watch those guys play different games is really, really awesome. And the coincidence of, like, me getting to watch poker streams for the first time in months and getting to watch Raz, Horse, and 8 game mix was really sweet. I want to go to, like, Costa Rica or Canada or something for a couple months and just grind online so I can play Raz and stuff. So dumb that it's not a thing here. Cho'Gall's not good. That was my inclination, but there might be some insane combo with it at some point. Yeah, not yet, but you know, next set it might go from unplayably bad to stable card. Yeah, no horse. Ooh, are you serious? Wah wah. Horse is just a 5-game limit game. Hold'em, Omaha 8, Raz, Stud, and Stud 8 or better. Yeah, Greeny T. There's a great story. I don't know if I should tell it. Alright, I'll tell it. So, the story goes, Gerard Fabiano is in Atlantic City, and there's some poker series going on. And so he wants to get bankrolled to play some event. So he calls up Yelger and says, hey man, I want to jump in this, like, you know, 1500 horse event. You want to back me or take half my action or whatever? And Yelger's like, no, Gerard, I'm not falling for this again. Do you even, what was it, horse? Do you even know all the games in horse? Gerard's like, yeah, of course I know all the horse games. Like, alright, what's the best hand in Raz? And Gerard's like, deuce to 7, obviously. And Yelger's like, yeah, okay, I guess you do know. And gave him the money to play the tournament. In case you missed the joke, deuce to 7 is not the best hand in Raz. So, Gerard, learning one of the games, like on day 1 of the tournament, he ends up chopping heads up on day 2 or 3. And, yeah, winning the tournament, chopping heads up. And they were covering it for their tournament series. So they're like, hey, you playing the main event, you know, on Saturday? He's like, no, man, I gotta go to Hawaii to play a pro tour. See ya. They just, like, put that in the coverage. So, yeah. That's my Gerard Fabiano horse story. Gordon Coleman. I like the dwarf voice. The innkeeper. Chopped the money with a single opponent. he was at like a 2-to-1 chip disadvantage, so they did a slight equity chop so that Gerard could get some sleep and catch his flight to Pro Tour Honolulu. It was 1,500, not 15,000. Keep forgetting this spacebar thing. 40 more packs. Any more questions? Ah! Ooh, this one's real good. And really awesome. I like that card a lot. I don't know, Jim Miles. Google, man. I'm not keeping tabs on my friends' financial interactions. Yeah, Carlos, this is the newest set. I think that's 2 of these, if I ever want to build Murloc Pally. What's Frontier? Legitimately don't know what that is. Oh man, a bunch of those. Yeah, The copy or choose both guy is super sweet. Oh, it's like a fan-created format for Magic. M15 onward. Meh. I mean, not really interested yet, but, you know. I'm interested enough to probably look into it if a tournament happens. Unzoth is busted. Unzoth is probably my favorite of the lords. Yogg-Saron's also, or not Yogg-Saron, Yishirji, as Day9 would say. We're almost done. Austin, what was your question? Oh, Unified Modern Constructed Opinions. I think you'll be going to Houston next year. I'm actually going to be doing a video, I think, on Unified Modern. So, I don't want to answer that right now, because I want to answer it in an edited format. Hallelujah and Big Magic are big players in Japan? You don't say! I had no idea! Yeah, no, the Japan Independent Circuit does a lot of big stuff. The, you know, Lunatic Moon Convention type tournaments and tournament series there's a lot of that. They have a healthy local community. Fun Hater, I think that the combo is going to be with the artifact that gains life and does 50 damage instead of Faithful Showdown. But I think that it's sweet. I don't know how playable it is, but it's sweet. I think Faithful Showdown wants you to do something slightly different. Countdown from 10. We're almost there. We can almost play Magic. Y'all excited? Yeah, Jim Miles hunting for that last Nat Darkfisher. Complete the playset. Golden Epic. That thing's pretty playable too, I think. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably dust the redundant copies, but like, I don't play ranked, so I don't need the dust or for anything. I also kind of want to do it by hand, because I did a bunch of other dustings by hand, because I have 2 or 3 Dr. Booms, and I thought for a long time that they were going to be nerfed. Or that it was possible that they would be nerfed, and so I could get full value from them. So I probably won't dust anything yet until I decide to get back into Constructed, and then I'll dust what I don't need. Last one! Kind of anticlimactic. But anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks for watching. If you're watching live, let's do some drafting, shall we?